The Ark of the Covenant, the presence of God among his people. In the book of Exodus, Moses ascended Mount Sinai to the presence of God, and he was shown the pattern of heavenly things. He was then given the 10 Commandments and sent to make earthly models of the heavenly things he had seen. One of those things was the Ark of the Covenant. While Aholiab and Bezalel made the tabernacle of meeting, Moses made the ark. It was a box of pure gold, measuring 3 3/4 feet long by 2 1/4 feet wide by 2 1/4 feet high. Inside of this durable box were placed the greatest treasure of mankind, upon which was built the foundation of every stable society, the 10 Commandments. On the top of the ark was placed a cover of solid gold. On top of the ark were 2 cherubim of solid gold with their protective wings overspreading the cover. Then the presence of God himself descended and radiated from between the wings of the cherubim on top of the ark. His presence radiated so strongly that anyone who touched the ark would be overloaded and die. The 10 Commandments were the most protected item in all of the world inside of the ark. The priests heard the voice of God from the ark when they would seek him, because his presence was there. The ark was even taken into battle in front of the Israelites, and entire cities were leveled before it. Eventually, Israel would settle, and the ark would take its place as the holiest item in the land. It was so holy that it stayed put away from among the people, and only accessible once a year on the day of Yom Kippur, only by the high priest, and only after a strict purification ceremony. Israel departed more and more from the 10 Commandments, and as a result, God departed more and more from Israel. Prophets prophesied, warnings were given, yet nothing changed. The Bible records that God gave them up to their Babylonian enemies for a short period of time in 576 BC. Nebuchadnezzar led a siege on Israel, killing many and carrying captive the rest. It was sometime around this period that the ark mysteriously vanished without a trace. It has not been seen for 3,600 years. A nagging question that needs to be asked here is, when did the ark disappear? Is there any reason to believe that it was still in Jerusalem at the time of the Babylonian attack? We find an order in 2 Chronicles 35:3 from King Josiah, who lived closer to the time of the attack but was not a contemporary, to bring the ark to the temple. Bring it back? Where had it gone? Was the order obeyed? It would seem that preparations were being made even then for an invasion. If the order was not obeyed, it's anybody's guess where the ark would be. One of the most popular theories, and considered to be the most plausible, is that Nebuchadnezzar took the Ark of the Covenant along with the items of the temple when he conquered and looted Jerusalem. If that is the case, however, why does it not appear in the list of items taken from Jerusalem? Solomon was very friendly towards the ladies, and in the 10th century BC he was paid a visit by the mysterious Queen of Sheba. She heard tales of Solomon's wisdom and went on a journey to see it for herself. However, according to legend, she left with a little more than she had bargained for. 9 months later, she delivered Solomon's son and named him Menelik. the Queen of Sheba made a decision to send him to his father to get an education and learn his ways. After some time, he chose to return to his mother. Solomon gave him his blessing and sent him with a group of Jewish people who were in his service. Apparently, again according to legend, the group that was sent with Menelik did not want to go. They were so angered by the decision, in fact, that they made off with Israel's greatest treasure purely out of spite, the Ark of the Covenant. That decision, however, was not known at the time to Solomon or to Menelik. When Menelik discovered what was now in his possession, he used its power to bring the surrounding cities and territories to the ground and take them for himself. This group of conquered lands later became known as Ethiopia. While this legend has been taken as true history by a few Ethiopians, there remain a few problems with the claim. Firstly, the ark had been stolen before by the Philistines. It didn't work out well for them. Many died, sickness and disease broke out, and their gods were decapitated. They ended up sending the ark back in haste with accompanying offerings. One would think that if Menelik had stolen the ark, then it would have been very quickly returned as well. Second, the ark was still recorded as having been in the temple hundreds of years after Solomon and the Queen of Sheba would have met. With that said, Ethiopia has a large population of Jews going back to its beginning. If this legend is not true, where did they come from? What's more, after the people converted to Christianity in the 4th century, church buildings were built. One of those church buildings is the Church of St. Mary's of Zion, and it has long been said to house the true Ark of the Covenant. To be fair, every church has an exact replica of the Ark of the Covenant as a gesture of unity, but St. Mary's of Zion is said to house the real deal. There is one person who is allowed to be in its presence. He is a man chosen from the elders who is deemed to be pure in heart. His job is to guard the ark. After he is chosen, he is never again to leave the church grounds until his death. He is the only person allowed to see the ark. The current guardian has said, when spoken to, that the first time he was in the presence of the ark, he was filled with terror and fell on his face before it. This fits the biblical description. In the book of 2 Maccabees, there is something to say about the issue. The Apocrypha records the events that happened around and during the Babylonian exile, which may prove useful to us. Among the records in the book, we find a familiar face. Writing of the prophet Jeremiah, of the book of Jeremiah fame, the passage in question, chapter 2, tells us that he heard the voice of God in a dream, giving him preemptive warnings and commanding him to remove the Ark of the Covenant, the altar of incense, and the tabernacle, and to take them up Mount Nebo, where he would find a cave with a room in it. He was then to bury the items, cover his tracks, and seal up the entrance. They were not to be found until God gathers his people at the beginning of the Messianic age. It was recorded that during the lifetime of Jeremiah, people were already looking for the ark. They scoured Mount Nebo, but to no avail. Jeremiah had covered his tracks too well and sealed the entrance so proficiently that it was impossible to find again, even when the task was freshly done. If this account is true, then Jeremiah would have needed several trustworthy people to help accomplish the task. 4 at least for the ark, probably 4 for the altar, a very large group to transport the tabernacle. This undertaking would have been massive. What's more, all of the men who were part of this would have had to have kept their silence, which seems unlikely but not impossible. Vows were taken with far greater gravity in Jeremiah's day. These men would have had to have moved these things in complete secrecy without being noticed by anyone, probably by night. Given the lack of care that the tabernacle had received during this time, it's not impossible or as improbable as one might think. Another interesting claim is that of the Limba people of South Africa and Zimbabwe. Their claim to the ark is that long ago their ancestors carried the ark, or as they called it, the voice of God, south until it eventually made its way to a cave in the mountains of Dumgi, where it was hidden from the world. This is a second account involving a cave. This, of course, would have been after the events described in 2 Maccabees. There are also problems with this account, both of which have previously been applied to other theories here. Namely, 1. As mentioned, the ark does not like being stolen from Israel. Bad things happen when the ark is stolen from Israel. 2. The location of the cave. Jeremiah had so excellently sealed it and hidden his tracks that the people couldn't find the cave immediately following the task. Why would we think that someone else was able to find it? Modern seekers of the ark wouldn't find it anyway, according to this legend, as it was then taken to East Africa, where it inexplicably exploded. The remaining fragment from that explosion was then used as the core of an exact replica that was built around it. There may be at least a fragment of truth to this legend, as indeed in 1940 an exact replica of the ark was found in a cave in this region and now sits in the Museum of Human Science in Harare. Does it actually hold a piece of the real deal? There are other locations that maybe should be taken a little less seriously. Or maybe not. A rabbi by the name of Eleazar ben Josi claimed to have seen the ark in the Basilica of St. John Lateran in the 2nd century. It is worth pointing out that he noticed bloodstains on the ark. When he asked about them, he was told that it was stained from centuries of blood spatter on the Day of Atonement sacrifice. Which makes sense if one remembers that nobody could touch the ark to clean it. Early in the 20th century, Israelites from Britain carried out excavations on the Hill of Tara in Ireland for a short period of time. An old Irish legend says that the Ark of the Covenant lies in Ireland, and that it is the reason for the legend of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It would make sense with biblical texts, being that the rainbow was a sign of God's Noahide covenant with mankind. However, the excavation was stopped for fear of destroying the hill. Another interesting legend to consider is that of the ark being located in Egypt. When King Tutankhamun's tomb was opened in 1922, photographs were taken. In these photographs was an ark. Ark fever swept through the world at that time. However, the fact that it was a golden box was where the similarities stopped. The measurements were all wrong, and there were compartments inside to hold separate objects, not the 10 Commandments. Which of these locations is the home of the Ark of the Covenant? It's anybody's guess, really. But personally, I would keep my eye on Mount Nebo.